Shalom, giving all praises, glory, and honors unto Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushua, by Hashem Dash, the blindness to the apostles, elder bishops of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the 144,000 rest of the hopeful elect out there. This is your brother, the priest, Zai1 from GMS Atlanta. Back with another edifying video. And all hell's breaking loose, beginning to break loose. And as you can see here, this is from ABC News. Trump deploys 2,000 National Guard members after LA immigration protests. And this has been all over the news. A lot of things have happened. A lot of videos have spoken on this. But I just want to say something on in the spirit. And things are beginning to look like trouble for Jacob. So I'm going to keep reading this. It says the Trump administration is deploying the California National Guard in response to protests in Los Angeles over immigration enforcement operations that have resulted in some clashes between demonstrators and authorities, the White House said in a statement. President Donald Trump signed a memorandum deploying 2,000 National Guardsmen to address the lawlessness in California as demonstrations opposing immigration and customs enforcement operations continue in the state. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said in a statement Saturday evening. And I've spoken numerous times in other videos about these anti-immigration or anti-ICE protests that have been taking place all over the U.S. And you don't really hear them in the news like that. So the first big major national news coverage of these protests is, here Trump sending these National Guardsmen out to California. There's different protests that are continuing to take place on different college campuses and other parts of the world, opposing the war between Israel and the Gaza war. But this hadn't been spoken about as much. So now things are starting to heat up. And like I said, it's looking like trouble for Jacob. Because who's Jacob? Jacob are the so-called Hispanics, so-called Mexicans, Central Americans, South Americans, which make up the northern kingdom of Israel, along with the North and Seminole Indians and those of the Caribbean islands. They're all Israelites. But we've been prophesying for the longest time of these things to take place, and they manifested themselves. You see the image here, cars on fire, people looking. And there's this one video I saw earlier where they were, a protester was throwing rocks at the different ICE agents' vehicles. So things were heating up out there. Okay? It says, in the wake of this violence, California's feckless Democrat leaders have completely abdicated their responsibility to protect their citizens, Leavitt said. That is why President Trump has signed a presidential memorandum deploying 2,000 National Guardsmen to address the lawlessness that has been allowed to fester, Leavitt said. So this is the major news that's coming out of California right now. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said in a post on X that the Defense Department is mobilizing the National Guard immediately to support federal law enforcement in Los Angeles. And if violence continues, active duty Marines at Camp Pendleton will also be mobilized. They're on high alert. So Trump is sending full force out there. Earlier Saturday, California Governor Gavin Newsom said the federal government was moving to take over the California National Guard, calling the move purposefully inflammatory and saying it will only escalate tensions. Okay, so let's get some scriptures, right? Some precepts. I mentioned about Jacob's trouble, and it's just, you know, beginning to manifest. It's not full blown chaos, but Jacob's trouble is a part of the end times. You know, trouble coming to the Israelites, which Israel was the name that was given to Jacob by the angel. And then that name was bestowed upon his descendants, which are the so-called blacks, Hispanics, Native American Indians today. So it says, Jeremiah 30:7, alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. So we are reaching a point to where there will be a time period in history that will be unlike any other, where the Israelites will be heavily persecuted. Our people are going to be heavily persecuted in these last days. It says, it is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. Now, the only ones of Jacob that are going to be saved are the elect. Okay? The elect. The chosen few, the remnant. But for the majority of our people here in America, they're going to be killed. Straight up, they're going to die. They're going to be killed. They're going to be run over by the oppressor, by the enemies, by these troops, by these cops, famine, pestilence, diseases, sicknesses. Martial law will be declared. That's pretty much what's going on. There's all kinds of evil that is coming to our people. Matter of fact, let me pull this precept, just so you can understand why I said what I said. Okay. Yeah, Jeremiah chapter 15. Jeremiah chapter 15. I'll start at verse 1. It says, then said the Lord Yahweh unto me, though Moses and Samuel stood before me, yet my mind could not be toward this people. The Heavenly Father is not for the so-called Hispanic people of California. He's not for the so-called African Americans that are out here in America. He's not for the Native Seminole Indians. He's not for this people. He's only for the elect of Israel. Cast them out of my sight and let them go forth. So whatever trouble is coming to the Israelites, that's what the Lord wants. And it shall come to pass if they say unto thee, because we're the ones telling them that evil is coming. So they're going to see the prophets, they're going to see videos, and certain of them are going to ask questions. Well, what's happening? Why is this going to happen? And it shall come to pass if they say unto thee, whither shall we go forth? Then thou shalt tell them, thus saith the Lord, such as are for death to death, and such as are for the sword to the sword, and such as are for the famine to the famine, and such as are for the captivity to the captivity. So that's just going to be evil. And I will point over them 4 kinds, saith the Lord, the sword to slay, the dogs to tear, and the fowls of heaven and the beasts of the earth to devour and destroy. And that this did come to pass. But this same type of judgment is going to happen over here in America as well. And then verse 4 says, and I will cause them to be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. And that's what happened. You got Israelites, you got so-called blacks saying that, see, there weren't no blacks that came from Africa and slave ships to America. We were already over here, and a whole bunch of madness. No, you didn't know. The African Americans, the West Indians, Haitians, we came from West Africa, in cargo slave ships to America. Period. Now, the people that were already over here, those are the Native American Indians, the Hispanic tribes, so-called Mexicans, Aztec, Mayans. Those people were already here, and they are also Israelites. That's who was already here. The prophecy says that we will be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth, everywhere. It says, because of Manasseh, the son of Hezekiah, king of Judah, for that which he did in Jerusalem. And that was just for that case. Back then. But now we're in the time that the Israelites have been removed in all the kingdoms of the earth. And this same type of judgment is going to take place. Death for death, sword for sword, famine for famine, captivity to captivity. Because you can be held captive in concentration camps, prisons. There's sending, speaking of what's going on out here, they're sending these so-called illegal immigrants to their home country, or what they want to do is send them to places like Guantanamo Bay. That's captivity. To be put in prison. So, these are the scenes that are out there in California. You see the police, you see the protesters kicking cars. So let me do this. Let me go to I want to get some more news on this, but I want to get the latest news. Let's see, National Guard in LA. Let's go to news. This is BBC News. Los Angeles protests live. Troops sent by Trump arrive in LA with more immigration raid protests expected. CNN. National Guard on the ground in LA after Trump's deployment order 22 minutes ago, 1 hour ago. Los Angeles Times, 5 minutes ago. U.S. Rep. Waters defends protests wants crowds to grow and grow as National Guard gathers in L.A. ABC Los Angeles, Trump deploys 2,000 National Guard members after Los Angeles immigration protests. And this is why we say this guy Trump is Nero all over again. Nero hated the Israelites when you do your history. And reincarnation is a real thing. It's a real concept. You're born more than once on the planet Earth. Your body dies in one life and you return in a new body as a newborn baby in another life. And that's what has happened with Emperor Nero of ancient Rome. He has returned as Nero Trump. Or, well, we call him Nero Trump. He's returned as Donald J. Trump. All right? And, history repeats itself. That's why I mentioned in the prophecy in Jeremiah, the same thing that happened to the Israelites back then, it's going to happen again. Okay? So let me see if I can, let me get them. This is 5 minutes ago. So they're inciting the people to continue to protest, which they have the right to do, to peacefully protest, but it looks like things are getting a lot more violent. Okay, here we go. Maxine Waters. See, so you got this old black woman here standing up, saying that they should continue to grow. Look at this. Speaking outside of the Metropolitan Detention Center, to the captivity. Detention centers are set up for prisoners and captives. It says on Alameda, U.S. Rep. Maxine Waters addressed National Guard soldiers, the presence of whom she called an escalation of tensions by the Trump administration. Who are you going to shoot? She asked the 24 soldiers. If you're going to shoot me, you better shoot straight. And these are U.S. soldiers. What's going to really be an escalation is when they send these foreign troops, because they got foreign troops as well on the ready behind the scenes to really tear the roof off of things, so to speak. Okay, let me read this. It says, Water, an outspoken critic of the president, called the deployment of National Guard troops an unnecessary escalation of tensions as multiple immigration operations occurred in the country. Why are they out here with guns, she said. Waters said she was at the center to inquire about SEIU President Herta, who was detained Saturday. This is an escalation, she said. The president is working to impose martial law. See? She said this, I want the crowds to grow and grow and grow. We learned a lot during the civil rights movement, she said, adding that Trump should be ashamed of himself. Well, we're not in the time of the civil rights movement anymore. You know, this old bat. And listen, we're in the time of Jacob trouble, okay? We're in the time of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, thus saith the Lord, bringing trouble to Jacob. This is just the beginning. Things are going to escalate in this country thanks to prophecy. And it's not going to be these U.S. troops, because they're going to be sent overseas to fight in World War III. They're going to send in foreign troops. They're going to introduce the MOTB, the microchip implant, which is the mark of the beast. No matter what these other Israelite groups say, IUIC, ISUPK, and others, those are the main two. GMS, has it right when it comes to these prophecies. So this is just a whole chaotic scene that is taking place out there because of these protests. But that's what the scriptures say are going to happen. Okay? Let me get Luke, the 21st chapter. I'm not going to make this too much longer. Luke 21. This is going to be in the Amplified Bible because this gives the perfect context for what's to come due to this prophecy here. Pursuant to this prophecy. Luke chapter 21, I'm going to go straight to the point at 9. And you can see the words are in red, so these are Yahweh Shai's words. When you hear of wars and disturbances, civil unrest, revolts, uprisings, do not panic, for these things must take place first. So we're seeing the unrest, we're seeing the revolts, the uprisings, we're seeing the troops being deployed, pretty much martial law being declared. It's all prophecy. It says, but the end will not come immediately. So it's not a full-blown fulfillment, but as you continue to read, these things are only the beginning. Okay? They're only the beginning. Then Yahweh Shai told them, nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. If you just turn on the news, you're going to see all kinds of news stories about the war in Ukraine, between Russia and the Ukraine. You're going to hear about the Israel and Gaza war, the Houthi rebels in the different armies being deployed over there. You got Iran, the threat of a strike on Iran. And then you got these protests over here in America. It says there will be violent earthquakes, and there has been a lot of violent earthquakes recently. And in various places, famines and deadly and devastating pestilences, plagues, epidemics, and there will be terrible sights and great signs from heaven. How many of these Christian pastors this Sunday morning spoke on the evil that's happening in the world today and lining up with prophecy? All of them, how many of them are going into these prophetic books in the scriptures and saying, see, there was an earthquake and they're sending troops to LA. How many of them are lining things up with Bible prophecy? You see, these Christians don't have the Holy Spirit. They're just reading out of the Bible with no full understanding. That's why the Lord set up Great Millstone as the top man on the planet Earth when it comes to these prophecies and scriptures, to tell you the truth. Okay? So we're seeing a heavy scene happening out there in LA. Okay? And this is as of, here it says 10 minutes ago, 22 minutes ago, 32 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, live immigration raids. Los Angeles Times. So trouble's beginning to come to Jacob. I just want to make that point. Okay? The Edomites, the so-called white man, which is Esau according to the Bible, his people are the Edomites. They are on you tribes' asses. They're tired of, what's the new term? Black fatigue, brown fatigue. Hell, you even got white fatigue. So racial tension is building up in America, along with the people against the government. Okay? Oh, let me pull that precept. I'm going to get straight to the point on these precepts. Let's go to the book of 2nd Ezra, the 15th chapter. Around like the 16th verse. Yep. 2nd Ezra 15 and 16. For there shall be sedition among men, right? The sedition means what? A people that rise up against the government. Okay? You also got protesters, civil unrest. It says, in invading one another, they shall not regard their kings nor princes. Okay? Those that are in authority. And the course of their actions shall stand in their power. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, for because of their pride the city shall be troubled. The houses shall be destroyed and men shall be afraid. So these are the things that are to come to pass in these last days. And we're seeing a smidgen of it come to pass. These things are going to continue to escalate. See, what was it, 5 years ago? 5 years ago, was it 2020? You had all the George Floyd protests, and it was Judah. It was the Southern Kingdom, black people protesting. Now, and that was the last time Trump was in office. Now, 5 years later, Trump's back in office. Now you Hispanics are protesting. Now y'all are dealing with issues from this government. Which just proves that we're the Israelites. It proves that this is the time that the end of this society must take place, and Jacob has to go through his trouble. Okay? We're in that time now. And you got the perfect president in office to do it, which is Nero back all over again in the reincarnation. Donald Trump, as he hated the Israelites, the Christians 2,000 years ago, that same spirit is on him again in these last days. Now, what you also had here, and this was, yesterday? Okay, well, this was actually, let me go back. A few weeks ago. Walgreens closing dozens of stores across 17 states. Here's where. So now they're closing these Walgreens where you get these different medicines and groceries and convenience items, which are mainly in these rural areas. I mean, they're everywhere, but they have been located in areas in recent years where there weren't any grocery stores. So a lot of convenience stores, gas stations, pharmacies were how a lot of people were getting certain items that they would have to drive miles for to go to a grocery store or even like a Walmart. So here it says in October, Walgreens said about 500 store closures would happen during the fiscal year, but didn't explain when the remainder would take place. As of Tuesday, however, some of its more than 8,000 stores have been marked for impending closure online. This location will permanently close on May 22nd, so this was back in May. We're sorry for any inconvenience this may cause. So this is what? There's going to be shortages, famines. Okay? They call them food deserts. And then the only other places you have might be like a Dollar General or Family Dollar up the street, which is going to push people into these high traffic areas, Walmarts and so forth. And that's going to be chaos. And that's on top of these other protests and other reasons for people to be on edge. So this is a spelling out bad for America.
90.
We're sorry for any inconvenience this may cause. A banner on the location page for the Walgreens in East Haven, Connecticut reads, offering customers information about transferring their prescriptions to another Walgreens. But what if the next 2 or 3 Walgreens shut down? That's what it means by famines. It says the dates vary across impacted stores, but there are 2 general groups, one with closures occurring next week, and that was back in May, and the other with closures set for late June, and we're in June now. An analysis by Nexstar found similar closing banners on the location pages for 54 stores across 17 states. And these are all the different stores. Yep. That's basically all the Walgreens, the major ones in these major areas. Depending on where you live. So that's just going to push people to more high traffic areas. That means less items on the shelves at any given time because more people are going to one location. That's going to lead to famine, shortages. People are already on edge. You got troops in the streets. You already got inflation. So the words of Yahweh Shah are definitely coming to pass, What did he say? He says, but the end will not come immediately, but it's coming to pass. But with that, I'm going to close out. Hope this is edifying. All praises goes to Yahweh B'Ashem Yahweh Shah, B'Ashem Kakodash. Shalom.